The cold is a living thing in this cabin. It seeps through the chinks in the log walls, a persistent whisper against her skin. It snakes along the floorboards, licking at her ankles. Arianth pulls the thin, scratchy blanket tighter around her shoulders. But it's no use. The chill is inside her, a permanent resident in the hollow spaces where warmth used to be. Outside, the wind howls a mournful song through the pines. Each gust sounds like a judgment, a reminder of what she is. Broken. The word echoes in the vast, empty silence of the cabin, in the vast, empty silence of her life, an Omega who cannot conceive. A woman deemed useless by her alpha, by her pack, by the world she fled. Zorathus had said it with such casual cruelty, his voice a silken blade that had severed her from everything she knew. "What use is a barren field?" he'd asked, not to her, but to the others, the smirking betas and the fertile omegas who watched her world collapse. She had been cast aside, not with a roar, but with a quiet, suffocating indifference that was somehow worse. So she ran. She ran until the manicured lawns of the packlands gave way to tangled forests, until the scent of manicured civilization was replaced by the raw, honest perfume of damp earth and pine. She found this cabin, a forgotten relic left by some long-dead trapper, and made it her sanctuary, her prison. Here, her brokenness is just a fact. Like the rising of the moon or the coming of winter, there is no one to judge it, no one to whisper about it behind their hands. There is only the wind, the trees, and the gnawing loneliness. A sudden frantic scratching at the door jolts her from her reverie. It's sharp, desperate. Claws on old wood. Her heart leaps into her throat, a frantic bird beating against the cage of her ribs. Nothing comes to this cabin. In the year she's been here, she has seen deer, the occasional fox, but nothing that would claw at her door. The sound is too big for a fox, too desperate for a bear. To fear, cold and sharp, floods her veins. It's an old, familiar companion, the fear of an Omega alone, unprotected. The fear of a world that has only ever shown her its teeth. She stays frozen, her breath held tight in her chest. Maybe it will go away. Maybe it's just the wind playing tricks, twisting the sound of a branch into something more sinister. The scratching comes again, louder this time, followed by a low, pained sound, a whine that is less a threat and more a plea. It's a sound of profound agony, and it cuts through her fear, snagging on something deeper. Her grandfather's voice, a warm memory in the cold cabin, murmurs in her mind. Compassion costs nothing, Arianth. Indifference costs everything. He had been a healer, a man who saw worth in broken things, who could mend a bird's wing or a wilting plant with his gentle, knowing hands. He would not be cowering behind a door, and her hand trembles as she reaches for the old iron latch. Logic screams at her. Don't open it. You are alone. You are vulnerable. The lessons of her past, the betrayals and the cruelty, all warn her to stay hidden, to protect the fragile peace she has built. But the whine comes again, weaker this time, and it is threaded with a despair she knows all too well. The sound of being left to die, the sound of being unseen. She cannot be the one who turns away. She will not. Taking a shuddering breath, she lifts the heavy latch. The door groans open on stiff hinges, letting in a blast of rain-soaked, freezing air, and she sees him. From Annie Fording, on her porch, half collapsed in a pool of rain and what looks sickeningly like blood, is a wolf. But it is like no wolf she has ever seen. It is colossal, a creature of midnight and shadow, its fur the color of a starless sky. Its size is unnatural, bigger than any wolf of the northern woods. One massive shoulder is matted with blood, a raw, ugly wound torn into its flesh. Its breathing is a shallow, ragged rasp. Her fear returns, a tidal wave that threatens to drown her. This is a predator, a monster from a dark fairy tale. But then her eyes catch something else. Nestled in the protective curl of the wolf's enormous body, sheltered from the driving rain by his sheer bulk, is a bundle. It's small, wrapped in a strange, moss-like cloth that seems to shimmer faintly even in the dim light, and from the bundle, two eyes stare up at her. They are not the unfocused, milky eyes of a newborn, and they are clear, intelligent, and the color of liquid silver. It's a baby, a human infant, impossibly here, protected by a dying beast on her doorstep. The wolf lifts its head, a monumental effort. Its eyes, the same piercing silver as the child's, meet hers. There is no malice in them, only exhaustion, agony, and that same desperate plea she had heard in its voice. Help us. The dilemma tears her apart. Her mind, conditioned by years of trauma, screams at her to slam the door, to bolt it, to hide until this nightmare has passed. An alpha predator and a child. It could be a trap, a glamour, some dark magic meant to lure her to her doom. But her heart, her broken, useless heart, it sees something else. It sees a protector, spending its last ounce of strength to shield its charge. It sees a vulnerable infant, alone in a storm. It sees the very thing she was denied, someone choosing to help, to shelter, to care, even at the cost of their own life. The rain plasters her thin nightgown to her skin, the cold seeping into her bones. But in that moment, a different kind of warmth sparks within her, a defiant ember of compassion. She will not be like Zorothus. She will not be like the pack that turned its back. She will not let another creature die alone and unseen on her doorstep. Okay, she whispers, the word, a puff of white in the frigid air. The sound is small, fragile, but it is a promise. Okay, I'll help you. The wolf's massive head sinks back to the wooden planks of the porch, a silent surrender. He is trusting her. This monster, this king of the forest, is placing his life and the life of his child in the hands of a broken Omega. The choice is made. Her first instinct is the child. Always, the most vulnerable first. Her hands shake, but her movements are sure as she stoops, her bare feet recoiling from the icy, wet wood of the porch. The rain is relentless, turning her hair into dark, dripping strands that cling to her face. It's all right, she murmurs, her voice meant to be soothing, though it trembles. I'm not going to hurt you. She reaches for the baby. The giant wolf lets out a low, guttural growl, a sound that vibrates through the floorboards and up her spine. It's a warning, weak, but still potent with threat. I know, she says, speaking to the wolf now, her eyes locked on his. I know. I'm just taking him inside, out of the cold. I'll come back for you. I promise. She doesn't know if he understands words, but he seems to understand intent. The growl subsides into a ragged sigh. His silver eyes watch her every move, a silent, pained sentry. She lifts the baby. He's impossibly light, yet feels dense with a strange, quiet energy. The moss-like cloth is soft and warm to the touch, repelling the rain. It smells of deep forests and clean earth. The baby doesn't make a sound, just watches her with those unnervingly wise eyes. She carries him inside, her heart a frantic drum. She places him gently in the center of her cot, the only soft place in the one-room cabin, and pulls her blankets around him. He blinks slowly, looking around the dim, unfamiliar space without a hint of fear. Then she turns back to the door, to the monster waiting on her porch. But this is the harder part, the terrifying part. She grabs the thick bearskin rug from in front of the cold hearth. It's heavy, but it's the only thing she can think of. Dragging it onto the porch, She kneels beside the wolf. Up close, he's even bigger, a mountain of muscle and fur. The smell of wet animal, blood, and ozone from the storm fills her senses. "I have to move you," she says, her voice low. "It's going to hurt. I'm sorry." Getting him onto the rug is a nightmare. He's a dead weight, an impossible burden. She pushes and pulls, her muscles screaming in protest. She's slick with rain and his blood, her tears mingling with the downpour on her cheeks. He lets out a soft moan of pain as she jostles his injured shoulder, and guilt lances through her. But finally, after what feels like an eternity of grunting, straining, and whispered apologies, he is on the rug. Hauling him across the threshold is another monumental task. The friction of the rug against the wooden floor is immense. She puts her back into it, her feet slipping, her breath coming in harsh, sobbing gasps. Inch by agonizing inch, she pulls him inside. She has done it. She has invited the dangerous, the wild, the unknown into her tiny, sacred, safe space. The door, which she finally manages to slam shut against the storm, feels like the closing of a chapter. Her life of quiet, miserable isolation is over. She collapses against the door, shivering and spent, her gaze fixed on the two impossible creatures now occupying her home. The silent, silver-eyed baby on her bed, and the giant, bleeding wolf on her floor. The threshold has been crossed. There is no going back. The first 24 hours are a blur of frantic, terrified caretaking. Arianth's first priority is the fire. The cabin's chill has deepened with the wetness she and the wolf brought in. She stuffs the stone hearth with dry wood from the dwindling pile by the wall, her hands clumsy and trembling. When the flames finally catch, casting a warm, dancing light across the room, she lets out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. The light illuminates the wolf's wound, and she feels a fresh wave of nausea. It's worse than she thought, a series of deep, parallel gashes, as if from the claws of some even larger beast. The edges are ragged and dark, and the bleeding, while slow, is persistent. Her grandfather's lessons surface from the depths of her memory to clean the wound, stop the bleeding, prevent the fever. She boils water, her movements becoming more automatic, more purposeful. She tears strips from one of her few spare shifts, creating clean bandages. In a small wooden chest at the foot of her cot are the herbs she gathers, a habit ingrained in her by her grandfather, yarrow, to stop the bleeding, willow bark, for the pain and fever, moss, dried and pounded, to pack the wound and keep it clean. Approaching the wolf is terrifying. He is unconscious, or close to it, but his sheer size is a constant primal threat. His chest rises and falls in shallow, uneven breaths. "I'm going to clean this," she whispers, more to herself than to him. "It's going to be all right." She dips a cloth into the hot water, wrings it out, and gently, so gently, begins to dab at the edges of the wound. The wolf flinches, a muscle twitching in his massive flank, and a low growl rumbles in his chest, a subconscious warning. "Shh," she soothes, her voice barely audible. "I know. I'm sorry, but I have to." She works for over an hour, cleaning away the blood and grime, her stomach churning at the sight of torn muscle and flesh. His fur is thick and coarse beneath her fingers, except where it is matted with blood. As she cleans, she notices something strange. The flesh seems to resist infection, the edges of the wounds unnaturally clean despite the filth they were exposed to. She crushes the herbs, making a poultice that she carefully applies, packing it into the deep gashes. His skin is hot to the touch, a fever already setting in. She bandages him tightly, her work clumsy but functional. With the wolf tended to for now, she turns her attention to the baby. He has not made a sound. He just lies on her cot, wrapped in her blankets, his silver eyes following her every move. He seems content, watchful. It's deeply unsettling. Babies are meant to cry, to fuss, to demand. This one simply observes. She checks his strange, mossy wrapping. It's not a diaper in any traditional sense, yet it is clean and dry. She has no milk, no food for an infant. Panic begins to bubble in her chest. What is she going to do? As if sensing her distress, the baby's gaze shifts to a small leather pouch tied to the wolf's massive, uninjured leg. She hadn't noticed it before. Hesitant, she approaches the wolf again and carefully unties it. Inside is a small, smooth stone, cool to the touch, and a water skin made of some material she doesn't recognize. When she uncorks the water skin, a faint, sweet smell, like nectar and spring water, wafts out. On instinct, she dips her finger in the liquid and offers it to the baby. He latches on immediately, his suckling gentle but firm. His silver eyes close in contentment. It's some kind of nourishment. Relief washes over her, so potent it makes her knees weak. A routine begins to form in the small, firelit cabin, an absurd domesticity in the face of the impossible. Every few hours, she gives the baby the sweet liquid from the water skin. She cleans and reapplies the poultice to the wolf's wounds. She keeps the fire roaring, a bastion against the storm that continues to rage outside. The silence is the hardest part. It's a heavy, oppressive blanket. She's used to being alone, but this is different. This is a silence filled with the ragged breathing of a dying predator and the unnervingly quiet presence of a child. On the second day, she starts to talk. At first, it's just practical things. Whispered to her strange house guests, "I need to fetch more water. The fire is getting low." But the silence pushes back, demanding more. And so, she begins to fill it. She talks to the baby as she feeds him, his tiny hand wrapped around her finger. "I don't know what to call you," she says softly. "You have eyes like a little star. Maybe Starlight?" "No, that's silly." He just watches her, his expression placid. It's easier to talk to the wolf. He is unconscious, a silent confessor. She sits by his side, replacing the warm, damp cloths on his head to fight the fever, and the words just spill out. A dam of loneliness breaking. "He told me I was broken," she whispers, her voice thick with unshed tears as she smooths the fur on his great head. It is surprisingly soft. "Zorathis, my alpha, he said I was a barren field, that my only purpose was to give him strong pups, and I couldn't even do that. He didn't even look at me when he said it." She pauses, the memory of fresh, stabbing pain. They all just watched. No one said anything. No one helped me. They just let him discard me, like I was nothing. She talks about her grandfather, his kindness a stark contrast to the cruelty she's known. "He taught me about these herbs. He said, the forest holds a cure for every ailment. If you only know how to listen to it, he would have known what to do for you. He would have saved you without a second thought." She tells the wolf about her dreams, the ones where she has a child of her own, a dream that turned to ash in her mouth. She speaks of her fear, her shame, the deep, abiding certainty that she is flawed beyond repair. She pours all her pain and loneliness into the quiet space between them, and in return, there is only the soft sound of his breathing. It's more comfort than she has had in years. But on the third day, something impossible happens. She is changing his bandages, cleaning the wounds as she has been doing tirelessly. The fever still rages, but he seems stable. As she peels back the old poultice, she gasps. The gashes, which were deep and angry 2 days ago, are no longer raw. New skin, pink and healthy, has begun to knit the torn flesh together. The healing is happening at a rate that is not just unnatural, it's miraculous. A wound that should have taken weeks, if not months, to heal, if it didn't fester and kill him first, looks as if it has been healing for a week or more. She stares, her mind refusing to process what her eyes are seeing. This is not normal. This is not possible. Her gaze darts from the wolf's impossibly healing flesh to the baby on the cot. He is watching her, as always, and for a fleeting moment, she thinks she sees a flicker of something in his silver eyes. Satisfaction, reassurance. She shakes her head, trying to clear it. She's tired. She's hallucinating from lack of sleep and stress. That has to be it. But she knows it isn't. These creatures are not what they seem. The wolf is not just a wolf. The baby is not just a baby. She is in the presence of something far beyond her understanding. The fear is still there, a low hum beneath the surface. But something else is growing stronger. A sense of wonder. A feeling of profound connection to these strange, silent beings. Her fear of the wolf has been slowly, imperceptibly, replaced by something else. Protectiveness, comfort. The sheer, solid presence of him in her small cabin has become grounding. He is a bastion of quiet strength, even in his injured state. That evening, exhausted, she doesn't retreat to her hard wooden chair to watch over them. Instead, she sinks to the floor beside the wolf, leaning her back against his warm, solid flank. His fever has lessened. His fur is just a pleasant warmth against her skin. She expects him to stir, to growl at the familiarity. He does not. His breathing remains deep and even, and hesitantly, she reaches out, her fingers trembling slightly, and rests her hand on the thick fur of his back. It's a tentative, questioning touch. The first time she has touched him without the purpose of healing. The contact sends a strange jolt through her, a current of warmth that has nothing to do with the fire. It feels right. As if a missing piece of her has clicked into place. A sense of safety, profound and absolute, washes over her. She feels more protected resting against this giant predator than she ever did in the heart of her pack. Surrounded by so-called protectors, her fear is gone. In its place, a fragile, tender shoot of belonging begins to unfurl in the barren field of her heart. She falls asleep there, curled against his side, her hand resting in his fur, while the silver-eyed baby watches them from the cot in the warm, flickering light of the fire. A week passes in this strange, new rhythm. The world outside the cabin ceases to exist. There is only the fire, the quiet baby, and the healing wolf. Irianth finds a peace in the routine, a purpose in the simple, demanding tasks of care. She talks to them constantly, filling the cabin with the sound of her voice, sharing stories of her childhood, her fears, her faded dreams. They are the best listeners she has ever known. The wolf, whom she has started calling Shadow in her mind for his dark coat, is growing stronger. His wounds are nearly closed, miraculous pink scars in the thick black fur. He is awake more often now, his intelligent silver eyes following her as she moves about the cabin. He still hasn't moved from the rug, but there's a new alertness in him, a coiled power returning to his massive frame. She is no longer afraid to touch him. She often finds herself stroking his head or leaning against his side as she feeds the baby. The contact is reassuring, a silent conversation that speaks of trust and a strange, burgeoning affection. The baby remains a tiny, quiet enigma. She has named him Leo, for the quiet strength he seems to possess. He has started to make small cooing sounds when she speaks to him, and sometimes a ghost of a smile touches his lips. He never cries. Not once. His serenity is as supernatural as the wolf's healing. It is on a crisp, clear morning, the storm having finally broken, that her fragile world is shattered. A loud, arrogant voice bellows from outside the cabin. "Irianth, I know you're in there. Stop this foolishness and come out." Her blood runs cold. She freezes, a bowl of warmed herb water in her hands. She knows that voice. It's a sound that haunts her nightmares, the voice that pronounced her broken, that cast her out. Zorathis, How? How could he have found her? She had run so far, covered her tracks, hidden herself in the heart of the wild. It should have been impossible. On the floor, the wolf tenses. Every muscle in his body goes rigid. A low, menacing growl, far more powerful than any he has made before, rumbles deep in his chest. His silver eyes are fixed on the door, burning with a cold, lethal fury. The hackles on his neck and back rise, turning him into an even more formidable silhouette. "Don't ignore me, you broken bitch!" Zorithus shouts, his voice closer now. "I am your alpha. You will show me respect." The door rattles as he slams his fist against it, panic claws at Erianth's throat. He can't come in. He can't see them. Her mind races, desperately searching for an escape, a place to hide her impossible charges. But there is nowhere. The cabin is one small room. The door splinters. With a loud crack, the old wood gives way, and Zorithus stumbles into the cabin. He is just as she remembers him. Tall, handsome in a cruel way, with an aura of arrogant authority. His eyes scan the room, widening in surprise at the domestic scene, then narrowing with contempt as they land on her. "There you are," he sneers, "living in this hovel. Did you really think you could hide from me? You embarrassed me, Erianth, my Omega, running off like some feral stray. I'm here to take you back." He takes a step towards her, his hand reaching out to grab her arm. Erianth flinches back, but she is frozen by the same terror that always seized her in his presence. But she is not the only one in the room, with a speed that seems to defy the laws of physics. The wolf moves. One moment he is lying on the rug, the next he is a blur of black shadow and incandescent rage, launching himself between Erianth and Zorithus. He doesn't make a sound, no bark, no snarl, just silent, deadly motion. He slams into Zorithus's chest with the force of a battering ram, sending the alpha flying backwards out of the cabin to land in a heap in the mud. Zorithus screams, a sound of pure terror and pain, and the wolf stands over him, a terrifying specter of retribution. His lips are peeled back from teeth like white daggers. His silver eyes are not just angry, they are ancient and full of a king's wrath. He is the embodiment of primal, protective fury. Zorithus, panicked and humiliated, scrambles backward in the dirt. His hand fumbles at his belt, pulling free a large hunting knife. The blade glints in the morning sun, and Erianth sees the faint, sickly etchings along the edge. Silver. "Get back, you beast!" Zorithus shrieks, brandishing the knife. The wolf does not hesitate. He lunges again, aiming not to kill, but to disarm, to neutralize the threat. He snaps his powerful jaws around Zorithus's wrist. Bones crunch. Zorithus howls in agony, the knife falling from his nerveless fingers. But in his panicked, flailing struggle, Zorithus manages to swipe wildly with the blade. It's a clumsy, terrified blow, but it finds its mark. The silver edge slices deep into the wolf's side, just below his ribs. A sound tears from the wolf's throat, a sound of pure, unadulterated agony that is nothing like the pain he suffered from his previous wounds. Smoke, acrid and foul, steams from the new injury. The silver is poison, a searing, corrupting venom to his very essence. Daddy stumbles back, shaking his massive head as if trying to clear it. His legs tremble. Zorithus, seeing his chance, scrambles to his feet, clutching his broken wrist. He gives Erianth a look of pure hatred and terror, then turns and flees into the woods, crashing through the undergrowth like a panicked deer. The wolf watches him go, then sways on his feet. He takes a staggering step back towards the cabin door, his eyes finding Erianth's. The fury is gone, replaced by a look of profound pain and a dawning horror. Then his legs give out. He collapses onto the muddy ground, his body convulsing. The wound in his side sizzles, the smoke growing thicker. Arianth is jolted from her stupor. The sight of him, her protector, brought down by the very man who broke her, ignites something fierce and new inside her. It's not fear, it's rage. Without a single thought for her own safety, without a moment of hesitation, she runs to him. She drops to her knees in the mud beside his shuddering form. "No," she whispers, her voice raw. "No, you don't." She doesn't know what to do. Her herbs, her knowledge, they are useless against this magical poison. All she knows is that she cannot let him die. She doesn't know if Zorothis is gone for good, if he will return with others. She doesn't care. She does the only thing she can think of. She shields him. She throws her own small body over his massive, twitching one, covering the silver-burned wound with her torso, as if her flesh and blood could somehow absorb the poison or protect him from further harm. It is a primal, selfless act, driven by an instinct she didn't know she possessed. "I've got you," she sobs into his smoky, twitching fur. "I'm here. I won't leave you." She holds him tight, a fragile human shield for a supernatural king, her own past trauma and fear burned away in the fiery crucible of her fierce, desperate compassion. She will not let him be unseen. She will not let him die alone. Not while she has breath in her body. From the world beneath her dissolves into a disorienting chaos of sensation. The wolf's body shudders violently, the convulsions racking his huge frame. A strange heat radiates from him, so intense it's like lying on hot coals. The acrid smell of burning and magic is thick in the air, choking her, and then she hears it. A sound that will be seared into her memory forever. The wet, sickening crack of bones breaking and resetting. It happens again and again. A rapid, horrifying series of snaps and crunches beneath her. She cries out, a mixture of terror and his name, the name she gave him in her heart. Shadow! His form shifts, contorting in ways that are unnatural, impossible. It feels as though the very mountains are moving under her. The coarse fur recedes, replaced by something smoother, warmer, skin. A strangled gasp escapes her lips. She pushes herself up, scrambling back on her hands and knees, her eyes wide with disbelief and horror. Where the giant black wolf lay dying, there is now a man. He is naked, sprawled in the mud and grass, where his animal form had collapsed. His body is a tapestry of lean, powerful muscle, corded and strong, even in this state of extreme distress. His skin is pale, almost luminous in the morning light, marred by dirt, blood, and the still smoking, silver-burned gash in his side. His hair is as black as the wolf's pelt, long and tangled, fanning out around his head. He groans, his head rolling to the side, and he opens his eyes. They are the same eyes, the same intelligent, piercing, liquid silver eyes as the wolf, the same eyes as the baby. Arianth's mind simply stops. It cannot compute, but the world tilts on its axis, logic and reason shattering into a million pieces. A wolf, a man, the baby, the silver eyes. He looks at her. His gaze is hazy with pain, but it is focused, locked on her. His lips, pale and drawn, part. A single word escapes, a rough, guttural rasp that is more an exhalation of breath than a sound. Mine. The word hangs in the air between them, electric and absolute. It sinks into her bones, into her very soul, with a resonance of deep, undeniable truth. It is not a claim of ownership. It is a statement of fact, a recognition. Her heart stutters, then begins to beat a frantic, new rhythm. He struggles to speak again, his voice raw with agony. The silver. It forces the change, breaks the hold. He coughs, a racking sound, and a trickle of blood appears at the corner of his mouth. My son. Is he safe? His son. Leo. It all clicks into place with a terrifying, breathtaking clarity. The alpha protector, the impossibly calm baby, the shared silver eyes. He wasn't just protecting a random infant. He was protecting his own child. He's inside. She manages to whisper, her voice sounding thin and distant to her own ears. He's safe. A wave of relief washes over the man's features, softening the sharp lines of his pain. He tries to push himself up, but collapses back with a gasp, his hand instinctively going to the silver wound. "They attacked my convoy," he grits out, his words fragmented. "Rival clan, use silver. Cowards." He looks at her again, and there's a desperate urgency in his eyes now. "I followed your scent. For miles." A beacon. Thought I was imagining it. Her scent? What could he possibly mean? She smelled of wood smoke and herbs and loneliness. "My mate." He breathes, the words so soft she almost misses them. The fates are not without their little jests. And to be saved by the one I was destined to find. Mate, the word, the concept, is so alien, so deeply ingrained in the pack world she left behind. Yet hearing it from him feels different. It doesn't feel like a brand of ownership, the way Zorathis had always used it. From this impossible man's lips, it sounds like a prayer, like a homecoming, her broken omega scent. The scent that marked her as undesirable, as useless. He had called it a beacon. The world spins. She is not just a hermit who found a stray wolf. She is a... what? The mate of a man who can turn into a wolf? A shifter? The creatures she'd only heard of in whispered legends, stories told to scare pups. And he is not just any shifter. The power that radiates from him, even now, when he is wounded and vulnerable, is immense. It's an aura of ancient command, of raw, untamed authority. He's an alpha. Not like Zorathis, a petty tyrant ruling a small territory. This man is something more, a king. Disorientation gives way to a fierce, renewed sense of purpose. He is a man now, but he is still hurt. He is still her patient. "We have to get you inside," she says, her voice gaining a sliver of its former strength. She forces herself to move, to crawl back to his side. "Can you stand?" He shakes his head, his jaw tight with pain. The silver, it saps the strength, burns from the inside. She looks at his powerful frame, then at her own. Getting the wolf inside was hard enough. Getting the man inside seems impossible. But she will not leave him out here. "We'll do it," she says, with a conviction that surprises even herself. "I'll help you. It is a slow, agonizing process." He leans on her, his arm draped over her shoulders, his weight almost crushing her. Every step is a fresh wave of agony for him, his groans of pain tearing at her heart. She supports him, her own muscles straining, whispering words of encouragement, her cheek brushing against the cool skin of his bare chest. The contact is intimate, terrifying, and yet feels profoundly natural. They stumble through the broken doorway and collapse onto the bearskin rug, the same rug where he had lain as a wolf. They are a tangle of limbs, both gasping for breath, covered in mud and blood. For a long moment, they just lie there, the world shrinking to the sound of their harsh breathing and the crackle of the fire. He is a king, a shifter. He is the father of the child on her bed, and he has just called her his mate. But her quiet, broken life is not just over. It has been utterly and irrevocably annihilated. In its place is a terrifying, bewildering, and strangely hopeful new reality. She looks from the pained, gorgeous face of the man on her floor to the calm, silver-eyed baby watching them from the cot. Her small cabin has become the sanctuary of a king and his heir. And she, the broken Omega, is somehow at the center of it all. The following days are a study in surreal intimacy and tension. The man he tells her his name is Corvain Heels, but at a human pace. The silver has ravaged his system, stripping away his supernatural recovery abilities. He is weak, vulnerable, and completely at her mercy. The power dynamic has shifted, and it's a palpable thing in the small cabin. He is a king, used to command, yet he cannot even sit up without her help. She, the outcast, is now his sole caretaker. She cleans and dresses his wound, which is an ugly, puckered thing that refuses to heal cleanly. She spoons broth into his mouth. She helps him drink water. This intimacy is a constant source of friction. He is ashamed of his weakness, his pride wounded as deeply as his flesh. He is curt, his words clipped, his silver eyes often stormy with frustration. He tries to maintain a distance, a regal authority, but it's impossible when she is changing his bandages, her fingers gently probing the tender flesh of his side. "I can manage," he would growl, trying to push her hands away, only to hiss in pain from the effort. "Be still," she would reply, her voice soft but firm, refusing to be intimidated. "You'll tear the stitches." She had used her grandfather's fishing line and a sterilized needle to close the wound, a gruesome task that had left them both shaking. He would fall silent, his jaw tight, and allow her to minister to him, his gaze fixed on the ceiling, anywhere but on her face. But Irianthe sees through the gruff exterior. She sees the flicker of gratitude in his eyes when she brings him a cool cloth for his fevered brow. She sees the way his muscles relax almost imperceptibly when she is near, and she sees the guilt. It's a heavy shadow in his eyes, a constant, silent presence. One evening, as the firelight paints dancing shadows on the walls, he finally gives it a voice. "You should leave," he says abruptly, his voice a low rasp. He's propped up against the wall, a blanket covering his lower body. The firelight plays over the hard planes of his bare chest and shoulders. Irianthe, who is rocking Leo gently by the hearth, looks up in surprise. "What are you talking about?" "You can't even walk yet. That man, Zorithis, he will be back," Corvain says, his gaze dark. "He will bring others. And the ones who attacked me, they are still out there. They are hunting for my son. You are not safe here. With me." He is trying to push her away, for her own good. The thought is so foreign, so contrary to every experience she's ever had with an alpha, that it takes her a moment to process. Zorithis had only ever thought of his own needs, his own pride. Corvain, a king, is thinking of her safety. A year ago, she would have listened. She would have run. The timid, broken Omega she used to be would have fled from this new terrifying danger. But she is not that woman anymore. "No," she says, her voice quiet but unyielding. She sets the sleeping Leo back in his makeshift cradle, a wood box she lined with her softest rags. She rises and walks over to Corvain, kneeling before him so they are at eye level. "I am not afraid of Zorithis," she says, and is shocked to find that it's true. After seeing Corvain's protective fury, Zorithis seems like nothing more than a posturing bully. "And I am not leaving you. Or Leo. You don't understand." He insists, his voice tight with frustration. "My world is violent. It is dangerous. You are human. You are fragile. I have survived this long on my own," she counters, a spark of defiance in her eyes. "I am not as fragile as you think. I chose to help you when you were a wolf on my doorstep. I am choosing to stay now." She reaches out, her hand hesitating for a moment before she gently places it on his chest, over his heart. She can feel the steady, strong beat beneath her palm. "You feel like home," she confesses, the words a vulnerable whisper. "Your presence, even when you were a wolf, made me feel safer than I have ever felt in my life." "I'm not running from that." His stormy eyes soften, the frustration giving way to a raw, aching vulnerability. He covers her hand with his own, his large, calloused fingers engulfing hers. The touch is electric, a silent acknowledgement of the truth in her words. of the bond that hums between them. Irianth. He breathes her name, and it sounds like a lament, like a prayer. The moment is broken by the arrival of his people. They come silently, moving through the forest like ghosts. One moment, the woods are empty. The next, they are surrounded. Two large shifters, in their human forms, appear in the broken doorway. They are hard-faced and armed, their eyes scanning the cabin before they drop to one knee, their heads bowed in deference to Corvain. "My king," one of them says, his voice rough with relief. "We tracked the silver scent. We feared the worst." Corvain's kingly demeanor returns in an instant. His back straightens. His voice rings with authority. "Report, Vathar. The attackers were from Forath's clan. They scattered after you fell. We have secured the prince." The shifter Vathar finally looks at Arianth, his eyes narrowed with suspicion and curiosity. "Who is the human? The days that follow are a whirlwind." Corvain's warriors establish a perimeter around the cabin. The tiny, isolated hovel becomes the temporary command post of an alpha king. A woman arrives, a stern, older shifter named Eusoria, who takes over Leo's care with an efficiency that is both a relief and a small, sharp pain in Arianth's chest. She feels displaced. Corvain is healing quickly now that he has the care of his own healers. He is getting stronger, more distant. He is a king again, and she is just a human woman who happened to be in the right place at the right time. The intimate bubble of their shared vulnerability has burst. The other shifters treat her with a wary, cautious respect. She is the human who saved their king, but she is still just a human, an outsider. She sees it in their eyes. A few, like a sneering, ambitious beta named Dramos, are more open with their disdain. He sees her as a weakness, a liability. But one evening, the main contingent of Corvain's court arrives, having made the journey from their stronghold. They set up a large, luxurious pavilion near the cabin, and Corvain, now able to walk, moves into it. But the cabin suddenly feels cavernous and cold again, empty. He summons her to the pavilion. It is filled with rich furs and tapestries, a stark contrast to her Spartan life. His inner circle is there: Vathar, Wysoria, Dramos, and a few others. They are discussing strategy, their voices low and serious. Corvain sits in a large carved chair, a king on his throne. He looks magnificent, powerful, and utterly out of her reach. He is dressed in dark leathers, and he radiates an authority that makes the air crackle. Dramos smirks at her as she enters, his eyes filled with derision. "Our king's little pet has arrived," he says, just loud enough for everyone to hear. Vathar shoots him a warning glare, but Corvain's face is an unreadable mask of stone. "We are holding a council of strategy," Corvain says, his voice formal. "We will be drinking ceremonial wine. Dramos, as you are so observant, you may instruct the human on her duties. She will serve." Arianth's blood turns to ice. The humiliation is a physical blow. Serve wine, like a servant, a joke, a way to put her in her place, to show everyone that whatever happened in that cabin meant nothing. It's a test, and a cruel one. Dramos's grin is triumphant. He thrusts a heavy silver carafe and a set of goblets at her. "The king first, of course," he sneers. "Don't spill it, human." Her hands tremble. Every instinct screams at her to throw the wine in his smug face, to turn and run back to her empty cabin. But then she looks at Corvain. His face is impassive, but his silver eyes are fixed on her, and there is a flicker of something in their depths. A challenge? A plea? She doesn't know, but she will not let them break her. She will not let them see her shame. She is more than Zorothus's broken omega. She is more than Dramos's joke. She takes the carafe. Her mind races back to her grandfather's lessons. The forest holds a cure for every ailment, even those of the spirit. Her fingers brush against the small leather pouch she always wears at her belt, filled with dried herbs. There is one in particular. Winter Calm. A. Simple, common herb. Not a poison, not a drug, just a mild root that, when steeped in wine, was said to clear the head and soothe a troubled spirit. Her grandfather used to give it to her in tea when she had nightmares. In 7, with her back turned to the others, as she pretends to wipe a smudge from the goblet. Her movements are swift and sure. She pinches a tiny, almost invisible sliver of the dried root from her pouch and drops it into the goblet meant for Corvain. It dissolves instantly. She turns, her expression serene, her hands steady. She walks to Corvain, kneels gracefully as a servant would, and offers him the wine. She doesn't look at him. She keeps her eyes demurely lowered. He takes the goblet, his fingers brushing hers. The contact is a small, familiar shock. He raises it to his lips. The whole room is watching. Dramos is practically vibrating with smug satisfaction. Corvain takes a slow, deliberate sip. He pauses. He does not look at Dramos. He does not look at his warriors. He looks only at her. His silver eyes widen, just slightly. A dawning realization spreads across his face. He knows. He recognizes the faint, earthy taste. The scent of the poultices she used on his wounds. The teas she brewed to fight his fever. It is the scent of her care, of her quiet strength. And he takes another, deeper drink, his eyes never leaving hers. The shouting, the strategy, the politics of his court, it all fades away. The anger and tension in his shoulders visibly ease. The mask of the king slips, and for a fleeting, breathtaking moment, she sees the man from the cabin, her Corvain. He falls silent. The entire pavilion is wrapped in his sudden, absolute stillness. His silence is more powerful than any roar, more commanding than any order. It is a silence of awe, of reverence. He knows what she did. She didn't lash out. She didn't run. She met their cruelty, not with weakness, but with healing, with care. She answered their challenge with a quiet act of intimate knowledge, a secret shared only between the two of them. She reminded him not of who he was a king, but of what she had been to him, his savior. Dramos's smirk falters, confusion clouding his features. The other shifters look from their silent king to the kneeling human woman, a new, dawning respect in their eyes. In that moment, she is not a pet. She is not a servant. She has proven, without a single word, the depth of her connection to their king. She has won. Corvain slowly lowers the goblet. He reaches out and places his hand under her chin, gently tilting her face up to his. His thumb strokes her cheek. "Enough," he says, his voice soft, but carrying to every corner of the pavilion. "The command is not for her. It is for everyone else. Leave us." The silence of the pavilion after his warriors depart is a living thing. It's filled with unspoken words, with the crackle of the fire in the central hearth, with the frantic beating of Arianth's own heart. She is still kneeling before him, his hand still warm against her skin. He slowly withdraws his touch, and the loss of it is a physical ache. He sets the goblet aside, the movement deliberate, measured. "Winter calm," he says, his voice a low murmur. "It's not a question." She nods, unable to find her voice. "My mother used to give it to me when my father's temper flared," he continues, his gaze distant, lost in a memory. She said it did not dull the senses, but sharpened them to what was truly important. He looks at her then, his silver eyes piercing, intense. "You have a habit of doing that." He rises from his chair and walks to the entrance of the pavilion, pushing aside the heavy flap to look out at the night. The moon is high and full, casting a silvery glow over the forest clearing. "I was wrong to test you like that," he says, his back still to her. It was cruel. It was the act of a cornered man, not a king. Why? She finally whispers, finding her voice. Why push me away? Why humiliate me? He turns to face her, and the raw vulnerability on his face steals her breath. The king is gone again, and only the man remains. Because I am terrified, Arianth. The confession hangs in the air, so contrary to the powerful being before her that she can barely comprehend it. I have been king since I was barely more than a boy, he says, his voice ragged with emotion. I have fought wars. I have faced down creatures you cannot imagine. I have never known fear, not true fear. Until now, he takes a step towards her. I fear what Zorothis will do when he returns. I fear what Foreth will do to get to my son. But most of all, he takes another step, his gaze locking with hers. I fear what they will do to you. The bond of fated mates is a legend, even to us, a fairy tale. I never believed it was real, until I was bleeding out in the forest, and your scent, it was like the first breath after drowning. It pulled me forward. It gave me the strength to reach your door. He is standing before her now, so close she can feel the heat radiating from his body. When I saw that man lay his hands on you, he says, his voice dropping to a harsh, guttural whisper, I felt a rage I have never known. I would have torn the world apart to protect you, and that is a weakness an enemy can exploit. My love for you, it is a weapon that can be aimed at my own heart. His love for her, he said it. The words she never thought she would hear from anyone, let alone a king from another world. Her own fear, her own insecurities, they all seemed to melt away in the face of his raw, honest confession. He is not pushing her away out of arrogance or cruelty, but out of a fierce, desperate need to protect her. And in that moment, she understands. He has spent his life being strong for everyone else. It is her turn to be strong for him. Being afraid doesn't make you weak, Corvain, she says, her voice gaining strength, clarity. She rises to her feet, so she is facing him as an equal. It makes you human. Or whatever part of you is like a human. A small, shaky smile touches her lips. You think I'm not afraid? She continues, her hand instinctively going to her heart. My entire life has been ruled by fear. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of being hurt. Fear of being alone. But being with you, that fear is quieter. Because for the first time, I feel like I am not facing it alone. She reaches out, her hand mirroring the gesture he made earlier, and gently touches his cheek. His skin is warm, slightly rough with stubble. Don't push me away to protect me. Let me stand beside you. Let me face the dangers with you. You saved me from Zorothis, but I saved you first. We are stronger together. At that moment, a small sound comes from outside the pavilion. It's Wysoria, the older shifter woman, holding a fussy Leo. The baby isn't crying, but he is squirming, his little face wrinkled with discontent. Forgive me, my king, Wysoria says, bowing her head. He will not settle. He keeps reaching. I think he wants his mother. Wysoria's eyes flick to Arianth. It is not an accusation, but a simple statement of fact. In the eyes of this child, she is mother. Arianth moves to take Leo, but Corvain stops her, his hand on her arm. He takes his son from Wysoria himself. He holds the baby awkwardly at first, a powerful king unused to such a small, fragile bundle. Leo fusses, his tiny fists waving, until his gaze lands on Arianth. He immediately calms, his little body relaxing. And then, he does something that seals all their fates. He reaches out a tiny hand, his fingers uncurling. He doesn't reach for Corvain. He doesn't reach for Arianth. He reaches into the space between them, his fingers brushing against Corvain's chest, and then, with unerring certainty, stretching out to touch Arianth's hand. He links them, his father and the woman who saved them. A single, perfect tear traces a path down Erianth's cheek. Corvain looks from his son's hand to Erianth's face, his expression one of profound, heart-stopping awe. The last of his defenses crumble, the weight of his crown, the burden of his fear, it all falls away. He is right, Corvain whispers, his voice thick with an emotion so deep it seems to shake his very soul. My whole life, I have been a king, a warrior, a son, but I have never been whole. Until now. Until you. He leans in, his forehead resting against hers. He smells of leather and pine and the cold night air. I love you, Erianth, my mate, my healer, my queen. I love you. She breathes back, the words feeling as true and essential as breathing, and then he kisses her. It is not a kiss of passion, not yet. It is a kiss of reverence, of sealing a bond that was forged in desperation and trust. It is gentle and searching, and tastes of wine and winter calm, and the promise of a future she never, ever dared to dream of. It is the end of her loneliness. It is the beginning of everything. It is the universe, which had been so cold and empty, finally, righting itself. 6 months later, the air in the great hall of Corvain's mountain stronghold is thick with the scent of roasting meat, pine resin from the torches, and the collective, excited energy of hundreds of shifters. It's a far cry from the quiet solitude of her cabin, but Erianth feels more at home here than she ever did in the stifling, manicured world of her old pack. She stands beside Corvain on a raised dais, little Leo held securely in a sling against her chest. She wears a gown the color of the deep forest, embroidered with silver thread that depicts a wolf and a spray of winter calm. She is not Erianth, the broken Omega, anymore. She is Erianth, the Luna Queen. It has been a tumultuous 6 months. Zorithis had returned, as Corvain predicted, with a small band of hunters from her old pack, their minds filled with his poison about a feral beast who had stolen his Omega. They were met not by a lone woman, but by Corvain's elite guard. It was not a fight. It was a swift, decisive judgment. The final confrontation had happened not in the forest, but here, in this very hall. Zorithis, captured and dragged before the king, had finally seen her. He saw her standing beside Corvain, confident and serene, with the heir to a kingdom in her arms. He saw her not as his broken property, but as a queen, beloved and revered. The shock and humiliation on his face had been her true victory. She didn't need to say a word. Corvain had banished him, stripping him of his alpha status and sending him into the desolate lands as a lone wolf, an outcast, the very fate he had condemned her to. The justice was poetic. The threat from Forath's clan still loomed, a shadow on the horizon, but it was a threat they faced together. Her knowledge of herbs, of human tactics, had proven surprisingly useful in Corvain's war councils. She was not just a symbol on his arm, she was a partner. Her quiet wisdom, a counterbalance to his warrior's strength. The pack had come to respect her, to see her as their queen, not just by fate, but by merit. Dramos was now one of her most loyal guards, his earlier sneers replaced by a fierce, grudging admiration. Tonight is the formal ceremony, the presentation of their union to the allied clans. It is a night of celebration, of cementing their new beginning. As Corvain leans down, his lips brushing her ear. "Are you happy?" he murmurs, his voice a low rumble that only she can hear over the din of the hall. She turns to look at him, at his handsome, beloved face. The lines of stress and fear that had been etched there in the cabin are gone, replaced by a deep, abiding contentment. He is a king, yes, but he is also a mate, a father. He is whole. "More than I ever thought possible," she answers, and her voice is true and clear. Leo stirs against her chest, making a small, happy sound in his sleep. He smells of milk and sweet baby powder. He is the living, breathing symbol of their impossible love, a bridge between two worlds. Her once barren arms are now full. Her once empty heart now overflows. Later, when the celebrations have quieted and the great hall is empty, save for the flickering torchlight, they stand on a balcony overlooking the moonlit valley. The snow-capped mountains rise around them like silent, ancient guardians. Leo is asleep in his cradle inside, watched over by a fiercely protective Isoria. Arianth leans her head against Corvain's strong shoulder, his arm wrapped securely around her waist. They stand in comfortable silence for a long time, simply breathing in the cold, clean air, together. "It's funny," she says softly, her gaze on the distant stars. "All my life, I was told my worth was in my womb, that because it was broken, I was broken." Corvain's arm tightens around her, a gesture of comfort, of silent anger at the fools who had hurt her. "But they were wrong," she continues, a gentle smile gracing her lips. "My weakness, it wasn't a weakness at all. If I had been a proper Omega, happy and with pups, I would have stayed. I would never have run to that cabin. I would never have been there when you needed me." She turns in his arms to face him, her hands coming up to cup his jaw. "My perceived flaw, my brokenness, it was the path that led me to you. My compassion, the thing they saw as foolish sentimentality, was the key that unlocked our whole world." He looks down at her, his silver eyes luminous in the moonlight, filled with a love so profound it makes her soul sing. He sees her, all of her, the scars and the strength, the past and the future. "You were never broken, my love," he whispers, his voice thick with emotion. "You were just waiting for me." He lowers his head and kisses her, a deep, passionate kiss filled with the promises of a lifetime of nights just like this. A lifetime of love, of family, of belonging. She was not a barren field. She was a hidden garden, waiting for the one person who knew how to make her bloom. And here, in the arms of her wolf king, under the silent watch of the stars, Arianth, the once broken Omega, was finally, truly, gloriously home.